Okay, additions or deletions to the agenda. We have one on action item B. We need to move that to, it was erroneously put on here, it's still in negotiations, so it needs to be moved to closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. So can we get a motion to move that to item D on the closed session calendar?
I second it.
Okay, any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any other additions or deletions? Okay, item 3, public comments. At this time, any person may address the board on any subject within the district's jurisdiction which is not on the agenda. However, any non-agenda matter will be referred to staff for a report and/or action at a subsequent board meeting, and no action can be taken on any such item discussed unless the action has been authorized under 54954.2b of the Government Code. Any person may also address the board on any agenda matter at the time that matter is discussed prior to board consideration and action. Speakers are requested to limit their comments to 5 minutes. At this time, we'll open the floor to public comments. Okay. And being there are none, then we will move on to item 4, comments and presentations. Director's comments. Start with Director Spoor.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'd like to congratulate, I guess we have one candidate in the cave. Congratulate you for your election. Roll up your sleeve. There's a lot to learn and there's a lot to work on. That's about it. So congratulate him.
Okay, also we had some people who just joined us after we closed public comments, so if it's okay with the board, we might go back to that after the director's comments. Okay, Vice President Webb?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I was reading in the LA Times. They were talking about a lot of the communities, and this is some of the more affluent communities that aren't really saving as much water as they could. And a few months ago, one of the community people made mention about us using more, the fact that we had saved more so we could start using more. The drought's still here, that little brief rain we had a couple of days ago didn't count it, but I was talking to a guy that lives in the Palisades, and he has really good property, and his comment was, if you can afford it, you should use it. And that's kind of sad because of the simple fact, just because you have the money, you can use more water, it makes sense. But anyway, DWP, I was talking to some of them, and they're sinking more wells in LA City because they're running out of water. But then if you read the other articles there, they're still building more property, giving permits to build more property. I don't know, we just don't get the whole thing about this water issue, but that water bond passed, and hopefully that's going to help us a little bit. But I'm going to still encourage everyone, be mindful, no snowpack, no water, no rain, no water, and continue to conserve and ask everyone to do the same thing. Thanks very much, Greg.
Okay. Mr. Wallis?
Welcome. Good to see you.
Mr. Glennan?
Welcome. I want to tag into what was just said. The water bond was a key issue for the state of California, and hopefully that money is spent wisely. It's going to be years before it's spent, but our water bank will be right in line to receive some of those funds.
And I would like to congratulate the candidates that won seats on this board, and candidate-elect Mr. McKay is sitting out there, and thank you for coming this evening. And with that, I'd also like to tag on to the water issue as well. We're getting into the cooler months, and hopefully we're going to get some rain. But even if we have a wet winter this year, we're not going to be out of the water woods by any stretch of the imagination. The experts say that we would have to have 3 very wet winters just to get to where we could safely say we're out of this drought and our reservoirs are protected and everything else. So it's it's just, you know, we need to keep the conservation mind going. We need to, the water bond that passed, yes, it's gonna be great for this state, but it's gonna take time to build the infrastructure that they're going to build with that money, and to build the reservoirs and the collection systems to collect the water runoff and things like this. So it's, you know, it's gonna take some time, but, you know, everybody working together will get through these water woes. And so it's gonna be everybody working together on it. At this time, I'm gonna go ahead and briefly open it up, if it's okay with the rest of the board, to, for public comments, because some people came in just after we closed down, and I wanna make sure anybody that wants to make a public comment has an opportunity to do so. So at this time, I will open the floor once again for public comments. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, is this the appropriate time for us to share the information about the Community Watch program?
Sure, come on up to the podium, please.
Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. My name is Gail Warnick. My husband Paul is sitting in the back of the room. Just to let you know, we have recently started the Rosamond Community Watch program. We will be basically acting as a community liaison and getting all the neighborhoods together to form a community watch. We are working closely with law enforcement. We have crime prevention coming from Bakersfield next week for our crime prevention meeting. It will be held on Wednesday, November 19th at the community center at 6 p.m. We would like to invite everyone to please come out and be a part of helping make our community safe again.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
A lot of people know me on the board and in this room. Those that don't, my name is Joe Bender. I have a little issue with management at this facility. I just can't get nothing done. When I ask for something to be done, customer service is not professional. And I hope that the board, I'm not going to go into the logistics of everything, because yeah, I'm in the wrong for a lot of stuff. But I hope the board realizes all the complaints that's been going down in this town, and I hope you guys are aware with social media and everything that's going down with social media, and you guys are aware of the problems that are happening. It's making this community and the board look bad. And for those that are coming into the board, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope this problem can be addressed. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close public comments and go to item 2, presentations. Are there any presentations this evening? Okay, item 4, informational items. General Manager, update on district projects.
We've been continuing to move to locate property to do a test well on, to see if we could find an area that was free of chromium and arsenic. And knowing that the cost of that, to drill a test well and abandon it and do the zone studies the way they want them done at the drinking water division, it's going to be costly. We've successfully moved that cost to the arsenic grant and to the engineering feasibility portion of that grant. So it's a savings probably about close to 80 grand in the anticipated cost. We're out to bid right now to get those actual costs and get a contractor to well driller to come in and drill that. We have a site located. It took significant development to analyze all the wells in the area and find an area that was free of chromium and arsenic, and that was difficult. We didn't want to move from one site and take and drill a well and have arsenic contamination and have to mitigate that, or just chromium and still have to mitigate chromium at the high cost. So the engineers have determined a location. We're out to bid and hopeful that we'll get that rolling really soon. if it's successful, it will save the district a ton of money. Because the mitigation of that currently, as I've mentioned in the past, is estimated between 10 and 12 million for the infrastructure, and the ongoing O&M for each well is approximately 150,000 a year. However, we have placed in anticipation that we couldn't find a good well site, we have undertaken a test of our water site for analyzing what it was going to take for our chromium issues to be mitigated. I should have a cost on that, an actual cost, prior to I believe my meeting's on the 24th. And I'll have some better numbers for you. The only issue is I'm not sure, you know, I got all of this done for free. They came in, they put their towers on 2 of our wells, well 8 and well 9, and left them on there for 30 days, and then took everything back, stripped them, and did a water profile to determine exactly what it was going to take to mitigate the chromium in those wells. The chromium has to be mitigated to not just below the MCL, but at 80% of the maximum contaminant level. So they've done that, they're going to come back, so we're looking at 2 different potential ways of mitigating the chromium, and hopefully both of them are going to be a lot less expensive than what the state had sent out as a calculator to estimate costs.
Steve, when you're saying that you have to mitigate that down to 80%, which would be 8 parts per billion, would they be going below that, or would they be just taking it down to the 8 parts per billion?
It'll probably go below, but the further you go, the more the cost to do it. It has to run through the process a lot longer. So if we can mitigate it to 80%, that should take care of any spikes that we should have in the chromium that would show up, and keep us free of any violations.
So in other words, if it goes down to the 80% and it spikes up to 8.5 or 9 or 9.5, will still be in compliance, or does it have to stay below the 80% all the time?
No, it just has to stay below the MCL, but if you're going to mitigate it in this fashion, you want to take it down low enough because of the cost, and keep it down below the violation, because it's a liability on the district if we don't do it properly.
Did they give any indication on how much it is to go for each additional point?
Not at this point. The meeting on the 24th will give me a lot more information as to the cost to mitigate it to the 80%, and those are the very questions that, or the very answers that will be provided also. So if we want to take it to 6 or 60%, then they'll give us that cost, because it's going to have to go through that process a lot longer. That process, taking out the chromium longer, is going to have more of the contaminant in it, so it's going to take a little bit more to clean it up once it's done, and so it comes with a greater cost. How great, I'm not sure.
Now, in the report, I didn't see anything in there, maybe I missed it, but is there, you know, there's going to be a byproduct, and so how do we dispose of the chromium that we collect, that we pull from the water?
Good question. After it's separated, it'll produce a volume of contaminant that will be carried off to a hazmat facility for disposal, and that cost and the frequency of that for each trip will be provided in this meeting on the 24th also. It's not as high in this process that they're providing as originally thought, or nor is it as great in quantity as we thought.
Who would accept the byproduct or the,
Well, there's a couple of different places in the state right now that takes it.
Buttonwell, I was wondering?
I don't believe Buttonwillow is, I'm not sure. I know that with the chromium, I don't know if there's any radioactive norm or natural occurring radioactivity with it. If it is, then Buttonwillow can't take any of it. So they'll give us the locations where it has to be taken to, the approved locations, and the cost to do that.
Steve, has there been any talk about any grants or funding available to smaller districts like ours to help offset some of these some of these cleanup costs?
There is money that's being placed into the Clean Drinking Water Act from the water bond. There was money set aside in the water bond for that. The Lahontan region is going to receive an additional $24 million, but the Lahontan region stretches from Lake Arrowhead all the way north to Lake Tahoe. So it's a big region, but we have a lot of projects. We're in one of the primary positions for additional revenue for our consolidation with, because of the arsenic issues. And this one falls right in line for that. So we're making a play also for some of that grant money, but it's not a guaranteed source of revenue. So we really haven't banked on it, but we're continuing to work on that.
Do we have to worry about any immediate out-of-pocket monies? Or is that somewhere down the line? Is this something that we need to be moving money from one account to the other immediate to address any of this?
Not immediately. We're still in that stage of exploring what option we want to take. If the well is produces what we need, then we'll be able to hook into our system directly. The other thing that we can do in the near term, if AVEK has enough water, is we'll put an emergency tie into our system and blend water with AVEK, which is actually not a very expensive way to go. But the only problem with that is if we rely on AVEK, which is not a reliable water source because of the 60% reliability, the adjudication that's going to occur, and those that are going to require more water from AVEK, and the drought. Last year they hit a zero allocation. We're able to get a little bump from that. This year, it's my understanding that preliminarily they're going to receive a zero allocation, and depending on whether or not we get a wet winter or not, hopefully we'll see them get another bump. But these are the considerations that we have to take on when we have to mitigate a standard like 10 maximum contamination level or parts per billion in chromium. Once we start down that path, if AVEK can't produce the water for us, we have to have another source in order to do that. Or the people will be drinking water that was supposed to be cleaned up. And we don't want that to happen because it could be a big liability on the district.
Hey Steve, question. I know you sit on one of those legislative committees up there, on one of the groups there. Has talk come up, or do you maybe believe that now this bond is passed, elections behind us now, that the Lahontan will maybe start pushing a little bit faster or quicker to approve our wastewater site, water for that? And number two, that maybe now that all this is finished, they'll maybe look at those numbers again from an unrealistic number and maybe work towards one that total, that parts part.
I'm not sure. Well, we've discussed it as one of our priorities for legislation in CSDA, and it may pop out to get a legislator to write legislation to either provide funding or exemptions or something of that nature. We're not sure what is going to be written yet. So we're working, or have it on our radar screen to start addressing. I think what's going to happen, and the big push is going to come when the realization of all the districts that get a letter saying they're in violation. And we have elected to go into violation mode sooner rather than later. We could be grandfathered, which meant we could take our numbers from last September and December and March, and then go and receive a violation letter because our levels are too high. Or we could start in December, go to March and June, and come in a quarter behind. The problem with that is the monies that are or might be available for the mitigation are going to be first come, first served. So I elected to get us moving on this issue. It's not going to go away, and we have to move on it. And if we have a chance of getting any revenue, we've got to get there first. The other thing is, if the revenue is held up and we're not in compliance right away, as long as we're moving towards finding the solution and getting something done, we'll be okay. They're going to give us that time to get up to speed because the tremendous cost is going to be staggering to a lot of districts. And that's where I say, I think when they start seeing that cost and and a lot more legislators are aware that this is not a one-party issue, this is a bipartisan impact on everybody, I think we'll see some action.
Steve, the last CSDA newsletter that came out talked about this state giving us requirements, and there is no money, like Greg has brought up before, and they've been fighting that in court, and it sounds like they lost it. Is that your take on that?
Yes, and there was something that was passed years ago in regard to unfunded mandates, and this is yet another unfunded mandate. If I drag your attention back to the ERAF bill, which took all the property taxes from special districts, counties, and cities, and were sent to the legislature to spend, we tried and tried and tried to get that revenue back. We are now reaping the harvest of that raid on local government's revenues. With that was an unfunded mandate clause, knowing, and it was the Jarvis-Gann people that passed it, because they knew that local governments being stripped down to the 1% Prop 13 levels, we're going to have a hard time funding projects. That they passed an amendment stating that the state could not push down any unfunded mandates. So if we have any hope at all, is we turn this back to the unfunded mandate clause in law currently, because this certainly is an unfunded mandate. But the only problem with that is it's a health and safety issue, and nobody has the intestinal fortitude to stand up and say, although it's a public health and safety issue, it's totally unreasonable. The cost benefit is not there. It can be proven that it's not there, and it should move forward.
How is our public relations firm doing on trying to get the truth out to the community? You know, we did have a member of the public comment about the wildfire of misinformation that's sweeping this community. How are we doing with that impact and the websites and things like that?
That's a great question, because we're constantly communicating back and forth to get that information out And because Tom Llewellyn's here, I'd like to have him come to the microphone and give us a small report on that question.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. For anyone that doesn't know, I'm Tom Llewellyn with Passantino Anderson. We are a public affairs and public relations agency that is in the Antelope Valley. We specialize in municipalities and land use. We've been working with RCSD for a few months now. We were brought on to help increase transparency. That was something that customers were asking for. And so we devised a number of different methodologies that we could use to help increase that transparency, because we truly felt that there were good things going on here, and there was some misinformation. One of the biggest things that we've done is the info sheet. And I know you've seen that, I know you've gotten comments on that. That's something that's produced monthly within our office under the direction of the staff and the board. We monitor the media, we monitor social media, we see where are the questions, where are people not getting correct information. Because we all want to make informed decisions, but we don't all have the luxury of being able to come out to the board meetings. And so sometimes we have to rely on what other people say, and we all played telephone in grade school, and we know how that goes. Beyond the info sheets that we put out, we've also put some half-page ads in the Antelope Valley Press. They've been running twice a month. When we haven't had so much information, we've reduced it, like this month, to a single ad. That's being conscious of the cost of the advertising. So trying to get that information out there, but not just doing it just to do it, only when we have a specific message. Another project that we've been working on is the new website, and that should launch. It should launch on Friday. It's going to be much more intuitive. It's got a lot more features. It's easier to navigate. Some of the things that we're doing too is we're migrating what are paper forms that would require folks to come into the office and fill things out or mail them in to be able to submit forms for public records requests, or to get the ball rolling on a new service, or if they want to request a street light, or if they see a leak, they can all do that from the website now, which should be a great benefit to them. So that's really kind of our main efforts is monitoring to see where there is misinformation or where there is different topics that could use some more information, and then using those tools to express it.
So you're rebutting the false information, but is it only in the bill?
Well, I don't know that it's rebutting. It's more just putting the correct information out. And it's not all. I use the term misinformation because there's obviously with any public agency there's going to be some criticism. There's going to be some mean-spirited criticism, and that's when you work in the public, you will not please everyone. I don't work in the public, I still don't please everyone. But a great deal of it, like I said, is I think it comes from hearsay. And some of it just comes from not understanding. We've done the special info sheets on the water banking, because water banking is really a neat thing, but it's something we say, okay, water banking, that sounds great, but how many of us really have our heads wrapped around what a water bank is, or what a great asset it is to the district? But then you take the case of the sewer fees, that there were a lot of questions. Now, some people understand the sewer fees and they're genuinely upset, and that's okay. I often, people say, well, what do you do for the water district? And my response is, I make sure that if they're upset for the right reasons. And so that's an example of a direct response to what we've seen as widespread misinformation. But it's not a rebuttal. We're a neutral party. Our job is to get out information and make the district more transparent.
So a question for you. I looked at parts of it when it was being developed out. The gentleman brought up concern about some of the conduct, perhaps on the staff or whatever. Would there be a way for people to put information on the website that goes to either the GM or one of the management people to look at that, or does his complaint, do they have a way of not coming into the office?
Absolutely.
Do they have a way of creating a hard copy?
Yeah, on the website there's actually 2 contact pages. One is the traditional contact page that has the hours and has the address, phone numbers, and emails. But then we also have another page that is a contact form. So if you wanted to raise a concern, or maybe tell someone they did a good job, but you wanted to do that in the privacy of your home, maybe you didn't want to come into the office for whatever reason, that ability will be on the new website. Now, that being said, there will be a couple of bugs when we launch it, and as you find them, please send us those comments so we can fix them.
So there'll be somebody monitoring, and so if they have a question,
Well, the way it works is when you submit that comment, it goes to the emails that we input in it. So it'll go to whatever is the appropriate email for that form.
okay, so if they have a specific question, they type it in, it'll go, if it's something that general manager should answer,
Yeah.
then it'll be channeled.
Exactly, and that's one of the neat things is, maybe I don't know who specifically I want to talk to report a water leak. So I can go on there and I can fill out the water leak form, and when I hit submit, it's going to the right person. Whereas if I have a question, that's more of a general thing, and so that kind of goes to an email that maybe a few people get, so.
Good.
Any other questions? Fantastic, I'll be here after the meeting too if you come up with anything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have an update on public works projects?
No, I don't. John was away and I didn't get a report from him.
Okay. Item 3, legal counsel, legal updates.
We got any updates on our legal progress, but I wanted to mention, since this is my first opportunity to talk to the public group, that yesterday was Veterans Day. I see one out there. Hope everybody takes a moment to think about the good things in this country and remember who's kept them safe. Throughout the history of our nation, it's been the veterans. I may be self-serving because I am one, but Veterans Day is important to us, and it doesn't hurt to get thanks once in a while and recognition. So particularly since one of our constituents is out there, think about your vets, be positive. If there's ever an opportunity to assist them in any way, do what you can. They've done a lot for us.
Okay, action items, item A, discuss and action to approve an MOU with AVEK regarding locating sources of water supply for the delivery to Rosamond CSD that addresses future development.
As your board's aware that we're a retail water supplier and we provide drinking water and to our customers within our service area. And our area is also located within the greater Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency's area. And what I'm bringing forward today is knowing that our groundwater is limited, and it's going to be further limited when the adjudication is finalized. And I'll give that update in closed session, but suffice it to say, it's moving rather quickly. And with that, bringing forward a memorandum of understanding with AVEK to provide water for future development. In short, basically, I'll sum it up like this. It would be developers bringing their water to the area instead of the area today finding the water, because we are going to be extremely limited in our ability to do so. And AVEK, Dwayne Chisam is here tonight, and I'd like to ask Dwayne if he could give some insight to what this does in effect to provide water for future development and where they may be doing this in other areas. Dwayne?
Yes, thank you, Steve, and members of the board. My name is Dwayne Chisam. I'm the Assistant General Manager with the Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency. Essentially, the MOU is a memorandum of understanding between the Rosamond Community Services District and the Water Agency, AVEK, to provide some outside water sources that would be brought into the service area of Rosamond that would offset the impacts that new development would have. The crux or the basis for that is that, you know, as communities begin to develop and they're concerned about their water resources in order to provide service to their existing customers and the new customers, oftentimes there's a need for additional water supplies. And what the memorandum of understanding does is provides a mechanism where new development can come in, provide a deposit to the Rosamond Community Services District, which can be forwarded on to AVEK, and we will do our best to try and secure those additional water supplies that will be dedicated exclusively to the Rosamond Community Services District. Once those supplies are secured, and the way the memorandum of understanding is written is that all of the costs associated with these new water supplies is borne by the developer, the subdivider of the property. It is a way to try and mitigate or make sure that new development pays its own way and doesn't impact existing residents. We have a current memorandum of understanding with Waterworks 40, and we have requests from Waterworks 40 for a small amount of additional water for 2 projects that they have approved for moving forward in July of this year. So AVEK will be actively looking for new water supplies. This is a very flexible agreement because it's completely within Rosamond's jurisdiction as to whether they utilize it or don't utilize it, as the case may be, but it does provide a mechanism and a method in which new water supplies can be secured for new development, and it's completely up to the board as to whether they would want to utilize that or not, but it does give you that option.
Could you explain to the public exactly what you mean by alternate water supplies?
In other words, AVEK currently has a little over 144,000 acre feet of what they call Table A water supply, which is water from the State Water Project. Along with that, all of the landowners within the AVEK service area have paid since probably the 1960s or so through their property tax for the infrastructure to bring that water to this area. And so what it means is that these supplemental water supplies would be in addition to that, and we've used that existing infrastructure that we have in order to be able to supply that water, whether it be Table A, additional Table A from another state water contractor, could be Colorado River water through an exchange program, through a metropolitan water district, or it could be agricultural water from the San Joaquin Valley through an exchange program for other state water supplies. So there's a myriad of additional outside of the normal Table A water supplies that can be secured, and through the existing relationships that we have with the other state water contractors, we can make that water available to the Rosamond Community Services District.
Is there a timeline once they come to you? Do they come to us, we come to you? Do we give them a set timeline, or how does that work as far as?
We don't give them a set timeline because, you know, as you could probably imagine, it's very, very difficult during this particular time to get permanent, you know, Table A water supplies or some additional water supplies available. There are some, and we're pursuing those, but we don't give any time frame. Usually, it's realistic to expect that it'll take, you know, at least a year or longer to secure those water supplies, and it's completely within, you know, within the board's authority as to whether they allow the projects to move forward. You know, oftentimes these projects take years in order to be able to completely build out, and you know, AVEK still has its original Table A water supply. And so there is some additional water that might be available during short periods.
I would also add that we're asking for approval on this pending council's full review of the document, and if there's any substantive issues, we would bring it back to the board for reconsideration.
Any other discussion?
Palmdale has their own program because they're, contract. And District 40 and now us, are there any others that are talking to you guys, like Horse Hill and others?
Horse Hill is aware of it. They haven't really moved forward with it, but they're aware of it, and they're looking at all of their existing supplies, because some agencies have a few more supplies than others, and I think a lot of what some of these smaller agencies are thinking about is waiting, till they get a firm number out of the adjudication. As soon as they get that firm number out of the adjudication, then they know how bad off they are, and then they can determine whether, they get. But, from a practical point of view, having new development bring new water supplies to the valley is a good thing. It's a good way to go, and so.
Okay, do I have a motion on item A?
A motion to approve item A.
Okay, motion is made by Vice President Webb, seconded by Director Spoor. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. President, would you clarify for the record that was pending council's review?
Pending council's review of the documents.
Yes.
Item C, discussion and action to implement a moratorium on will serve letters while stage 2 of the Water Conservation Ordinance is in effect.
This is another item of water, and I think it's a common sense item. While we're in a stage 2 alert ordered by the state, it seems right that we stop issuing will serve letters while we're in that effect. We're not clear as to whether or not we're going to get a wet winter yet. As I reported before, it doesn't look really good. No big indications, a little bit of rain, but it's going to take a while before all of the storage areas are back up to speed again. So with that, I think it's prudent that the board consider issuing a moratorium on will serve letters until the drought restrictions are raised from the state.
This came before the engineering committee, and it is a recommendation of the engineering committee that we adopt this. I concur with what Steve has said. It's a common sense approach. The state has put the stage 2 moratorium on us for a certain amount of days, but there's no guarantee that that moratorium is going to be lifted when those days are up. If we do not come out of this drought and continue to have a dry winter again, they will continue the stage 2 and quite possibly could raise it to a stage 3 or higher, depending upon what the state rules. So until that time, we need to hang on to every drop of water we can get to make sure that our citizens in this community have water available to them for their needs. And so at this point, I would like to entertain a motion on item C. Motion was made by Director Spoor, second by Vice President Webb. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Opposed. Okay. We have 4 yeses, 1 opposed. October 15th, 2014. Approve Steve Perez's expense reports dated October 30th, 2014. And approve the AP list 10/14/14 through 11/3/14. Motion to approve.
Does that tell us how much these expenses were?
Pardon me?
On here, it just say, approve the expense report. Is it public knowledge as to where we can have, we can know how much the expense report is for that period?
Okay, well,
Mine is $42.70.
What?
$42.70.
I think the question she was asking was available for the meeting. Well, the question was available for the meeting. Is that the question you're asking?
Yes.
That's the question, she wasn't available for the meeting.
We can provide that upon request. They want to review that, that's fine.
Anytime anybody wants to review any part of the agenda, you're more than welcome to ask, and it will be provided to you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're going into closed session on all 4 items, Steve?
Yes, I believe, yes.
Okay, closed session on item A, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 5.4.
Greg?
On the action items, did you do B?
We moved that to closed
Okay.
session.
I missed it. Okay.
Okay, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9A, Antelope Valley Groundwater Case, Diamond Farming Company versus City of Lancaster, Kern County Case Number 240090 AEW. Item B, potential litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9B, explosion of litigation, 1 matter. Item C, public employment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, titled General Manager. And then the item B from the action item that we moved pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Second.
Motion made by Vice President Webb, seconded by Director Spoor. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned to closed session at 6:48.